sermon was laid on my heart during the week of camp meeting. Kids can go upstairs if you all like. Done that early. 2 Timothy chapter 2. Now, like I was saying, this was the sermon was laid on my heart during camp meeting. Actually, I sat down and wrote it out while another guy was preaching. I'll tell on him. But the Lord has really laid it on my heart, started ministering to me. I don't even know. Well, yeah, I do remember how I got there. I've been doing a lot of, what do you call those things, Rachel? Devotions. That's what they are. Been doing a lot of devotions in the pastoral epistles here lately, because I just really have it in my heart that I'd just like to be the best possible pastor I can be by the grace of God. So there's only 3 of them, and there's not very many chapters there, so I've just been really just focusing in on them. And it just really got on my heart about this, you know. The more you read the pastoral epistles, the more you can't help but be burdened for the church, because you see that there's a lot of people in leadership that don't need to be there. And you also see how many ways that you fall short, and how much you need God's grace to do the things you need to do. So, I called this sermon, Meat for the Master's Use. I'm picking up in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 20. But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor, some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself of the latter, he will be a vessel for honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. But avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. That's just a little wisdom for Facebook there for you guys, just in case you're wondering. And the servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, in humility, correcting those who are in opposition, that God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses, escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. As I mentioned earlier, there's 3 pastoral epistles: 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus are considered pastoral epistles. They're written specifically how to guide and direct people in Christian leadership. But there's a lot of practical things in there too that pertain to everybody. Like, for instance, the verse just before the one that we just started reading, nevertheless, the solid foundation stands, verse 19, the solid foundation of God stands, having this seal, the Lord knows who are his, and let everyone who names the name of Christ depart from iniquity. So that refers to everybody. There's a lot of passages like the one we just read that talks about, how to lead others as a Christian. Here's a hint, guys. If you're a Christian, you're a leader. Period. We're all called to make disciples. We're all called to be in ministry. If you're a Christian, you're a leader. You are leading people. By the way, if you're not a Christian tonight, you're still a leader. You're leading people. Perhaps it's your family. Perhaps it's people that you have influence over. We're all leaders in some regard or another. Christians are to be leaders and point people to Christ. It's kind of strange being a Christian leader, because technically it's a hard thing to balance, because you don't want followers of you. It's a weird thing. It's kind of a complex situation, if you will. I don't want people to follow me, but I want people to follow Jesus. But in order for people to follow Jesus, they must also follow my leadership. So it's just kind of like you're stuck there. It's like, how do I balance this? And it's by the grace of God that He allows us to do these things. That's why character is very, very, very important when it comes to Christian leadership. These pastoral epistles, they're kind of a leadership manual for pastors. I got to talk to a buddy of mine, Andrew Street. He's a leadership counselor over in India. He's a missionary over there. He's using that as a gateway for missions in India. And he said I asked him what was some really good leadership books. I really want to. He said 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. Those are the best ones you could possibly read. He said all the rest of them are pretty humanistic, to be honest with you. But 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus. So that's where we're at today. Much of the content in these pastoral epistles have a lot to do with doctrine, a lot to do with false teachers, even how to spot genuine from false teachers. But mainly it's their either how to or how not to lead people. So that's what we're going to look at tonight. Now we're going to look at 3 character traits that in the context of this passage would be 3 character traits of God's sanctified servants that are meet with the Master's use. So if you would, I'd like to just pause for prayer and then we'll get into these character traits. Heavenly Father, we're just so thankful to be counted privileged enough and to be partakers of this great salvation that forms us into the very image of your Son, Christ Jesus. These are not things, Lord Jesus, we realize that are in our own strength. But Lord, they're by your grace what we can be partakers of on this evening. Lord Jesus, there's people in this church this evening, and there will be people listening in abroad that, Lord, come from all various kinds of backgrounds, all different kinds of leadership roles even in a lot of ways. But Lord, help us to see that we can all be used by you. That it really doesn't matter where we come from. What matters is where we're going and what we're allowing you to do in us. So Lord, let us walk out of here being encouraged. And Lord, I just ask for your help and anointing upon this message as I preach it. I want to thank you, Lord, publicly again for giving me the means to even print this off so that I can preach it, Lord Jesus. And I thank you for all the help that you've given me preparing this sermon, how it has been burning on my heart now for a couple of weeks. I just ask and pray that you bless it now in the name of Jesus. Let it be your glory. In Jesus' name. Amen. Looking specifically at, there's one verse in here that talks about these 3 character traits which really caught my eye. There's plenty of things in there. Fleeing youthful lust, that's important. Pursuing faith, love, and peace. Pursuing righteousness out of a pure heart, that's a good thing. Good advice too, to avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. How many people would have liked to have known that advice even last week? Oh man, how it's so funny how people just sometimes would rather argue about the Bible than learn anything about it. But the Bible tells us that we're not responsible to carry on that argument. We can just move on. That'd be the best thing to do sometimes, because they just generate strife. But in 24, there it says, "And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient in humility." So it's saying they're a servant of Christ. There's 3 things basically: somebody who is gentle, somebody who is humble, and somebody who is patient. And the Lord just really directed me to dive into those 3 character traits. So our first one will be gentleness. Gentleness can also be described as kindness. Somebody who is a person of God, who is a leader in God's army, is someone who is gentle, which is kind of the opposite of what the world would think a strong leader would be. Is somebody who is assertive and somebody who is forceful and somebody who basically forces people to do their will. That's not Christian leadership. Christian leadership is found in kindness, as Paul is describing here. In 1 Timothy chapter 3, verses 2 through 4, Paul describes a man who's not fit for ministry. A bishop then must be blameless, a husband of one wife, temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior, hospitable, and able to teach. And here's what would disqualify someone: not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not covetous, one who rules his own house well, having his children in submission with all reverence. You could almost say, just by reading those last 2 verses, 3 and 4, that gentleness sure covers a multitude of sins. Kind of amazing how that was just nestled right in the middle of all that. Did you guys catch that? It said, not given to wine, not violent, not greedy for money, but gentle, not quarrelsome, not covetous, one who rules his own house well, having his children in submission with all reverence. A gentle person has a peace about him that is attractive. A gentle person has something resting within them that is not in this world. It's not like what the world has, not like what the world offers. A gentle person is somebody who is filled with God's love. You know, it takes a lot of trust to be gentle sometimes. Especially if you see somebody, like you often do in ministry, they're running to hell 25 miles an hour just as fast as somebody can run, but yet you're called to be gentle. There is a time when you have to speak up and be blunt and plain. But there's also a time to be gentle, which is most of the time. Most of the time. I found that even in this morning's sermon, it was a more gentle sermon. It was a hope-filled, encouraging sermon. But even somebody in our congregation told me that was the first sermon they'd ever heard me preach that actually brought tears to their eyes. That's what they said. And it wasn't forceful. It wasn't shoving anything down anybody's throat. It was the gentleness and goodness of God that was leading them to repentance, which is a wonderful thing. It takes a lot of trust to be gentle. It does. You have to really trust God, because you're realizing, what we're doing up here when we're preaching, when we're in ministry, is we're basically doing what Dennis Kinlaw called the second witness. The second witness goes like this. Whenever you walk into church here, whenever somebody walks into church off the street, they're being drawn by the Holy Spirit. When you're called to preach something, you are basically providing a second witness to them, if you will. Because the Holy Spirit has already put it on their heart what their need is. You're just basically confirming that. That's a pretty freeing thing whenever you try to preach sermons, because you have to first realize that Jesus is already talking to somebody. You're just kind of confirming. Well, you're just kind of that guy standing back there saying, this is what Jesus said. He's already told you this. And it's best most of the time to be in gentleness. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, it says, speaking the truth in love, they grow up in all things into Him who is the head, Christ. Now, I'm going to be transparent and honest with you. Sometimes I've spoken things, even in this church, out of frustration. I have. Thankfully, I've got people that love me enough to tell me that. Sometimes, many people will speak the truth out of hurt. And many speak the truth through hatred. But none of those things are really going to bear much fruit. You have to speak the truth in love. And if you speak the truth in love, the gentleness of your spirit will resonate with their spirit to the place of, and bring them to the place of repentance. See, a gentle person doesn't really have anything to hide. They don't really have an agenda. They don't really have anything. They're not trying to cover something else up in their life. They've got a peace about them. And then many times today, you'll see quite the opposite come out of a lot of Christians. As I was up at OSA just about a week and a half ago, the Lord led me to street preach, which is not something that really happens very often. But I found myself giving a brief testimony. And as the Spirit led me, I actually started preaching to the OSA people. I turned the sermon around. The Lord really did it. See, what really burdened my heart was there's some very genuine Christians at that place. Let me tell you, there's some very God-hearted, very genuine Christians there. But with anything like that, and in any large group of people, there are also people there filled with hatred in their eyes. And it really broke my heart to see that our Lord was being represented in that way. It broke my heart that there are women going into that abortion clinic and ending the life of their child. It did. And I talked to them too. And I told them that, if it wasn't by the grace of God, I would have been right on the other side of that, wearing one of those purple vests and escorting those people into that place, because that's where I was 8 years ago. I was all for abortion 8 years ago before I got saved. And I told him that. I said, the grace of God will change your mind. And then I told him, listen, contrary to anything that you've heard from anybody out here, God still loves you. Even if you go through with this and you are waking up with regret tomorrow, go find a church, go find forgiveness and be saved. God can forgive you for yes, even this. And then the Lord really laid upon my heart to just turn around and say, I said, listen, the people that persecuted Jesus Christ were religious people. You need to understand that. And I've seen walking through here a lot of truth, but some of it's been spoken in hatred. Some of it has been spoken out of just sheer anger, and I can see it in your eyes. Now listen to me, my friends. There's an altar right here, and if you're not born again and you need your bitterness to be cleansed, there's an altar right here at the front of this place. You can come, and God can touch you. Everybody was amening me up until I said that. But that's what I felt led to say, and then it really blessed my soul to hear my friend Ashley tell me. She said, you know what happened the next day, Bill? She said over 40 people from OSA got saved and baptized. Over 40 people. And she said, I don't know about the rest of them. She said, but one girl walked up to me and said, I don't know who that preacher was. He only showed up for one day yesterday, but he said how there was hatred in her eyes and stuff sometimes. He was absolutely right. But today I have love. See, it's the gentleness of God. I wasn't condemning anybody. It was God that was condemning them. I was just laying that second witness out there to say, listen, you know, this is what I see, and I love you. And there's more to it than this, I promise you. I promise you. Well, people will know us by our fruit, guys. People will know us by our fruit. And we have a duty as Christians to show the love of God. We really do. Sometimes that will cause people to hate us. And sometimes people don't want to hear the truth and they'll reject you. But don't let them reject you because you're being harsh and critical. Let them reject you because they're convicted. In contrast to gentleness, you see in Titus 3, chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, Paul said, remind them to be subject to rulers and authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to be peaceful, gentle, showing all humility to all men. For we ourselves were also once foolish, disobedient, deceived, serving various lusts and pleasures, living in malice and envy, hateful, and hating one another. It's a pretty sharp contrast, isn't it? Was Paul speaking out of love there? Oh, absolutely. You know he was speaking out of love there. Because he wanted his people, the people that, leaders in the church, to be leaders. Not slave drivers, but to be leaders. And that's something that we have to really wrap our head around. And listen, I wouldn't be up here preaching this sermon if it wasn't for the Lord leading me to do it, because I feel pretty inadequate in some of these areas myself. And I'm just being faithful to preach the Word and what He wants me to preach. And sometimes I'll be even preaching to myself. It's real easy. If you're a passionate person, especially, you get caught up on denominational bigotry. You get caught up on truth and versus, what's right and what's wrong and all of those things. But what you need to understand is we need to come together as the body of Christ in gentleness and allow the Lord just to be Lord in our life and give us the peace that surpasses all understanding and lead others into that peace as well. But don't let that be a cloak for, if you can take this to an extreme, it could be a cloak for never standing up for the truth either. Because we're supposed to speak the truth in love. To be gentle simply means that you show people that you genuinely care for them. You're genuinely careful. You are concerned for them. Secondly, Paul's mentioned there humility. We must be humble people. It's a greatly misunderstood thing today, as I hear a lot of people, even pastors who are supposed to be leaders of the church, absolutely misunderstand this. Humility, yes, is meekness. But I like how A.W. Tozer quoted this. He made a quote about humility that really stands out to my heart. He said, walking in humility is in focusing on what we are not Rather, it is declaring what God is. Let me repeat that. Walking in humility isn't focusing on what we are not. Rather, it's declaring what God is. I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but this is why I cannot stand this self-esteem preaching stuff that we hear so much today. Self-esteem, self-esteem, self-image, self. You see, Christians and real freedom comes from completely being taken outside of yourself. It's not about us at all. It's not about our happiness. It's not about our contentment. God help us. It's about our eyes being focused off of us, or taken off of us completely. Our eyes being taken off us completely means that we certainly don't think highly of ourselves, but that also means not to think lowly of yourself either. Christian humility is not to think of yourself at all. That's for real freedom. Just don't think of yourself. Go and declare who Jesus is. Because your life is hidden with Christ anyway if you're a Christian, right? Amen? That's a wonderful thing, isn't it? James chapter 6, or chapter 4, verse 6 through 8 says that He gives more grace. Therefore, He says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. The humble servant understands where their strength comes from. The humble servant realizes that it's not about them. It's not about their education. It's not about their skill set. It's not about what people seem to call God-given abilities that you were born with. Those things, you can just throw all that out the window. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. You have to understand, to be in ministry, to be in Christian leadership, and to lead others to the Lord, that it is completely and totally dependent upon Jesus Christ alone. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it ever will be. You can be the best preacher, homiletician they call him, the best orator that you've ever seen, that the world has ever seen. But it really doesn't matter if you're not intimate with God. It really doesn't matter unless you have your eyes firmly fixed on Jesus and you have an anointing that allows the Lord to work in people's hearts and lives. One of my favorite preachers said, the difference between a preacher and a prophet is a preacher speaks to the head, a prophet speaks directly to the heart. We should strive for the gift of prophecy. We should strive for that gift, that we speak right into people's hearts, that we speak and people hear us because the grace of God is on us. It's not about us, not about how inadequate we are. I grow tired and weary sometimes when I'm sitting around with a group of pastors or something, and all I hear is about how inadequate everybody is all the time. It really starts to wear me out. I'm like, guys, we're not inadequate. We're called to preach the gospel. We would be inadequate if it was up to us, but I hope that you guys are adequate this evening, because God is empowering you to preach the gospel. That's what it's about. So we are more than adequate. Actually, the Bible calls us more than conquerors. And I mean, that you can say that and be humble, guys. You can say that and say, listen, it ain't about me, it's about God. But when God invades me, when God fills me, when God speaks through me, it astounds me what happens sometimes. It really does. Is that bragging on me? Is that bragging on Billy? Is it bragging on Rachel or David? No, it's bragging on Jesus. Because we owe it all to Him anyway, right? Exalt Him. The humble servant will be bold and will be burdened. That's another thing that really kills me, really strikes a nerve, is that people think, well, I'm humble, so I don't want to confront anything. That's not being humble, that's being a coward. Humble people are bold. They come, they have a burden, because their eyes aren't on what's going wrong with their life. Their eyes are on what's going wrong with everybody else's life. Not in a condemning way, not in a judging way, just saying, crying out, oh God, would you please help my friends? Would you please help these people that we're witnessing to and making food boxes to? Lord, you see the desperate situation that they have. We need your help here in Jackson, Kentucky. And of course, it goes without saying that if you're burdened like that, God's going to give you a boldness. He's going to give you grace. You're going to be faced with situations where it will cause you to confront other people's sin. It will also cause you to be sometimes considered to be judgmental or critical or something like that. Other people may see it that way. But you cannot let that wear you out and tear you down. You have to just keep on going, because really it's only between you and God if you know the attitude of your heart and where that boldness and where that burden is coming from. It's between you and God. Be faithful to Him. Be willing to bear that reproach. In 2 Corinthians 10:1, Paul said, "Now I, Paul, myself, am pleading with you by the meekness and gentleness of Christ, who in presence am lowly among you, but being absent am bold toward you." Paul was declaring he was humble. He was being meek. He's saying, listen, please, please, I am being bold. He is pleading with them. I always love this example of Peter. There's so many things you can take out of it. When Peter was full of himself, he ran when Christ was being crucified. You know the story, right? The cock crowed 3 times and he fled into the night in his night clothes, ran, crying like a woman, no offense, into the night, but he was a man. Scripture says that. Also, when Peter was emptied of himself and filled with the Holy Spirit, he ran into confrontation and preached the boldest sermon possibly in the whole Bible. See the difference there? Because Peter was humble, he allowed God to use him. That's what Christian humility is. It's not thinking too low of yourself, and it's not thinking too high of yourself. Matter of fact, you're thinking too low of yourself. That's a lack of faith too. Because Jesus, you're made in His image. You are God's child. He came to die for you. You are significant to Jesus Christ, you see. So don't think too lowly of yourself. Go out with confidence in Christ that He is going to use you. You have to have that. You do. You have to have that. And see, the humble person is a free person. He's not concerned, or she is not concerned by the opinions of others in regards to the way they live their life for Jesus, the things that they say, the things that they stand for. You know, I learned a lesson just here recently in the last 6 months that I don't have to respond to every criticism that's made toward me. That's a really freeing thing. It was wearing me out. And that was God's answer. Why are you responding to everything? And I got to thinking, you know, the prophets in the Old Testament, Peter and all these, they rarely ever responded to criticism. Jesus rarely ever responded to criticism. You know? Just like the sermon we talked about this morning, right? When those people brought the adulteress to him, what were they're saying? Like, what will you do with these people? He totally ignored those people. He was just like, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing here. By the way, if you're without sin, you can cast the first stone. You know, it just went on. You don't have to respond to every criticism. As the kids say now, haters are gonna hate. Let them hate. Let them just get on with your life. Who cares? Just let it. You know, care about the people that are obviously care about that. Who cares? I care. God cares. I don't want to throw that around. But you know, be concerned for these people, especially if they're standing up for God and they're standing against you. You really need to be concerned for these people. But you don't have to respond. I found out when I don't respond, especially on social media, I usually have people respond for me that do much better job. Brother David's dad the other night just squared a couple of people up on my page. You don't have to respond. You know, God is your defense. You don't have to respond to every criticism. Getting back to our subpoint here, a humble person is a free person. They're free. Because you don't have what some people call that spirit of offense that's on you all the time. You know? You're not concerned as to whether or not you're accepted or liked. Or none of that really matters too awful much. What really matters is, what's God's will for my life? What's Jesus doing in this person's life? What's Jesus doing in that person's life? Is there a way that I can reach this person? A humble person has their eyes off of them and their eyes onto Jesus. That's true Christian humility. That's the kind of life God blesses. See, we've talked a little bit about this, but the real problem with false humility, or really just looking down on yourself and talking yourself down all the time. And I heard somebody say, if you think you're humble, you're probably not humble. If you're exalting your humbleness in your mind all the time, your humility all the time, it's like, oh, I'm a humble person. That's usually the person that is not very humble. The problem with false humility, or looking down on yourself, is that it causes, believe it or not, a whole lot of pride. Because if humility is getting your eyes off of yourself and your eyes onto Jesus, then false humility puts your eyes back on your inadequacies and off of Jesus. And you see how that works? We have to be comfortable with who we are in Christ Jesus. We have to be very uncomfortable with who we are if we're sinning. That's another thing. But when we're saved, we have to be comfortable that God is there to help. And that God is our help, and He is where our strength comes from. False humility eventually will lead to arrogance, defensiveness, and ultimately the Bible proclaims in several different scriptures, violence. Isn't that amazing? That looking down on yourself can cause violence. Why is that? Why would it cause that? Because of you wanting to be defensive. It really depends on your personality and how far that sin takes you before you finally, as some people call it, snap. You know, and I understand. There's things that happen in our past. We've all had that. I have too. You know, we've been through some rough times. But just about everybody has. But if I can be honest with you, kind of as a big brother, if I would say to you, if you guys are my siblings, sometimes you just got to get over it and move on. Sometimes you just got to uproot the tree out of your yard and throw it out and say, you know what, this thing's worthless. There's time to go on. Quit focusing on it. It's in the past. You can't change it. There's nothing to do about it. Jesus can give you all the help you need to get over that and just go on and get your eyes off of that and back onto Him and say, you know what, I'll be out of this world in no time anyway. Life's just a vapor. Let's spend it wisely. Amen. Get our eyes off of ourselves and onto Jesus. Be humble means that you're focused on your strengths. That means you're not focused on your strengths nor your weaknesses, but that you're focused on Jesus and the needs of others. I hope we made that pretty clear. Thirdly, this word patience. I thought that was amazing that somebody was testifying to this earlier. And said, wow, like I said, it's that law of the second witness, right? We come in together, and if we're all praying, and I'm sure you guys do that, I'm praying for you guys. The Lord just starts lining up messages for this specific group of people. And I believe that very strongly. But back to our sermon, we've got patience here. More accurately, especially in this context, Paul was describing as somebody who bears up or can bear up under pain or evil. I like that definition. Bear up under pain or evil. It's a little more exact word in the Greek. It's a more specific word. According to Vine's Expository Dictionary. Somebody who can bear up under pain or evil. You know, some people, another thing I grow tired of hearing all the time, is that some people say, oh, I'm not going to pray for patience. Because if I pray for patience, that means my life is going to be, it's like, it makes you wonder, is that really where we are in the faith? That it's all about our comfort and not about being like Jesus. Let me bust a bubble for somebody in this room, maybe. Somebody listening in, maybe. Christianity is not about you being comfortable. You understand that, don't you? It's not about us being comfortable. That's not what Jesus died on the cross of Calvary for. Jesus died on the cross of Calvary to make us holy. And sometimes holiness comes through hard trials. See, the way we respond to trials brings patience. In James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, Brother James said this, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. But let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. It would also be worth mentioning that one of the fruits of the Spirit is patience, love, joy, peace, patience. Which means that patience is not just something we learn, it's something that by the grace of God we're gifted with. We're gifted with. A lot of times people get caught into the trap of trying to grow into things like patience, grow into things like love, grow into things like greater faith. But you have to understand that, I believe it was A.W. Tozer said, you show me one time in the Bible where somebody ever grew into anything. It always happens instantaneously. You have to understand that we have to choose patience. We have to choose love. We have to choose faith. We have to choose to be faithful. We have to choose to be gentle. We have to choose to be humble. It's really our choice. God's not going to impose His will and force that in you. But it's a choice that one must make. It says there, let patience have its perfect work, that you may be perfect, complete, lacking nothing. The reason James would use that, and especially in that context, is the Epistle of James was written to the Jews that were dispersed. You guys know that. We did a series on James last fall. You guys probably remember that, don't you? That it was about the Jews were pushed out of their homeland. I mean, it'd be basically the equivalent of a revival happening here in Jackson, Kentucky. Our families are well established here. We've got home places and all that. Then all of a sudden, the ruling people come and just push us right out of Breathitt County and say, you got to move to Canada. We're not going to put up with that here. That's what they were facing. They lost everything for the sake of Jesus Christ, and willingly. And James started that mighty epistle with, when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. Was that an unloving thing for him to say? No. It was a very real thing for him to say. Because when you're faced with hard trials, you're also faced with a choice. One of my professors says oftentimes when he prays at funerals, Lord, please use this situation to make people better, not bitter. Make people better, not bitter. That's really your decision. That's really your choice. You will have to choose the will of God, choose what He's doing, and say, Lord, what can I learn from this situation? What can I learn from this hard trial that I'm going through? Then if you choose patience in that hard trial, it says in the Bible that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. See, Jesus, again, wants us to get off the circumstances of this realm that we live in and get our eyes back upon Him. He is our hope. That's what it's all about. It's all about Jesus doing something that makes literally no sense to the whole rest of the world. That's what it's all about. And I've experienced this personally when I've suffered great loss. That when I had my eyes on Jesus, and if my eyes started trickling off of Jesus, I could always go back to Him and say, listen, I know where my help comes from. Please come and help me. He's been faithful to do that every single time, including tonight's time. He can do that. But we have to choose to surrender each time that comes up. If you would, turn in your Bibles over to Luke 21. If you brought one tonight. It's okay if you didn't. I'm reading too. There's 2 Bibles around.
What?
Luke chapter 21. Luke chapter 21. Jesus was talking about how perilous times in the last days. Luke chapter 21. It says in verse 19, I really like this verse. I may put it on the wall of the church somewhere. This sounds really amazing, I think. By your patience, possess your souls. Think about that. I've read that a million times. But I mean, that is a profound verse when you really start tearing that apart. By your patience, possess your souls. What does that mean to possess? It means to keep something, grab onto something. By your patience, hold on to your soul. Hold on to your salvation. By your patience, you do this. If you look at verse 10, you'll see what Jesus was talking about. Then He said to them, nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines, and pestilences, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. But before all these things, they will lay their hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues and prisons. You will be brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake, but it will turn out for you as an occasion for testimony. Therefore, settle it in your hearts not to meditate beforehand on what you will answer, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom, which all your adversaries will not be able to contradict or resist. In the last days, my friends, trials are going to come upon Christians. And if you can't have patience waiting in a fast food line, how are you going to have patience standing before the king of a country about ready to get your head cut off for the sake of Jesus Christ? We live pretty far below the Bible standards and what the Bible is really teaching sometimes. This is a training ground. That's what this is. It's a training ground. God says, I want to give you such patience that you'll have such a peace in your heart that you will not even make a defense for your life when it comes right down to it. Much of the early church faced this firsthand. Many of them were killed for their faith. One of my favorite stories of all time from that, I've told it several times from behind this pulpit. I love to tell it because I believe it was Ignatius. I could be wrong. David can correct me halfway through the story and help me out. No, it's Polycarp. It's Polycarp. Polycarp was brought to a Roman Colosseum. I can't remember the method of death that they finally gave him. Burned him at the stake. That's what it was. And he knew that. He knew that was what was coming. A group of Roman soldiers came, a whole, not a platoon, what do they call them? A Roman century came to apprehend this man. Showed up at his house. You know what he did? He witnessed to him for a couple hours and cooked them all dinner. That's the first thing he did. Well, they say that by the time, Christian tradition says, by the time they had made it back to the place where he would have been held for prison before he went to the Roman Colosseum, he had converted every single Roman soldier to the faith. And then as he stood in the midst of that hard trial, being burned at the stake, they said when they lit the fire underneath him, the flame burned around him for a certain period of time. Jesus prophesied that. I mean, he said that you'll be, when you are brought before rulers, I'll give you the words to say, and I will also make you a testimony. They tried to get him to repent. They tried to get him to deny his faith. You know what he said to them? He said, how did he put it? The Lord, he said, I've served the Lord for 80 years or something like that. I've served the Lord for 80 years, and soon I will see him in all his glory or something like that. I probably misquoted that. But I mean, he was like, what are you all threatening me for? I'm ready to go to heaven. This is the day I've been waiting on. Let's get on with it. You know, the only thing impatient probably going on in Polycarp's life at that point was he probably wanted to speed things up so he could see Jesus quicker. You know, more quickly. That's the kind of heart God wants to give each and every one of us. That's why the early church was so powerful, so effective. Their leadership was that caliber of men. They understood what it meant to lead people, knowing that these people that they're leading could possibly die. And I would go out on a limb and go as far as saying that America needs some good persecution. I'm not trying to sound mean or harsh or critical. I'm saying the Church of America it would probably help us at this point to see some good solid persecution. Because you've got to ask yourself the question, if that really is like the standard, if that's our history, if that's our lineage, where are we at in the faith? Where is our patience? Are we willing to bear that kind of hard trial? Betrayal in those last days will be the norm. You'll be betrayed even by parents and brothers and relatives and friends, and they will put some of you to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake, but not a hair on your head shall be lost by your patience. Possess your souls. Betrayal in those last days will be the norm. And you will have to choose whether or not you're going to continue to glorify God when you're betrayed, or you'll have to choose whether or not you're going to fall into the temptation of the flesh and try to make a defense for yourself and not have a glorious testimony in front of the throne of Jesus. You know, when you think about that, and you try to compare that to the trials that you're going through right now, day to day, it's kind of a proving ground for these last days in a lot of ways. And I hate to inform you of this, but there's many Christians throughout the world that are facing that already. Muslim countries, their families are putting them to death in an alarming way over there. But will you allow patience to possess your soul? It depends on whether or not if you want to live up to Paul's prayer burden when he said in Galatians chapter 4:19, "My little children, for whom I labor in birth, until Christ is formed in you." And that's really the key to patience. You're not going to learn patience any other way. You have to be able to bear up under pain or evil. With any terrible situation, we can either get better or get bitter. As Hebrews chapter 6 and verse 15 says, "And so, after he patiently endured, he obtained the promise." After he patiently endured, he obtained the promise. Speaking of Brother Abraham, he patiently endured and he obtained the promise. Your amount of patience is a sure test of how much faith you really have in God. His ways are often slow, friends. His ways are often take time. And we just need to be surrendered to God's timetable. The immature Christian will run out and try to get ahead of God, but the mature Christian will realize that fruit takes time to ripen. It's one day fruit appears on a tree in an instant, but it will take time to ripen. We are asked by the Lord in commanding, one of the fruits of the Holy Spirit, to be patient in every circumstance. Applying that to leadership, it simply means to be patient would mean that you're willing to go through hard trials for the sake of others' well-being. And you're willing to trust the bigger plan of God, and your faith is settled upon His timetable. You know, in 1 John chapter 2, verse 6, it says, "He who says he abides in Him ought to also walk just as He walked." And Jesus, being the most effective minister and model that we could ever have, was gentle, was humble, was patient. He was gentle, he was humble, and he was patient. Thought it'd be fitting to end with 5:35 tonight. Make me a servant. Sounds like servant leadership to me, doesn't it? Yeah. 5:35. And you know, this is one of those sermons it's not really an evangelistic sermon. It's really not. It's kind of an encouragement of a sermon. Kind of a call to something greater and beyond yourself, if you will. I'm not going to ask if there's any response or anything. But as we sing this song tonight, just pray that simple prayer we pray for community this morning. Search my heart, God. See if there's any of these things that I can use more of. I need not more gentleness. I don't need more patience. I don't need more humility. I need your humility. I need your patience. I need your gentleness. That way you're not just becoming just a greater exaltation of yourself. You're actually letting Christ be formed in you and to take over in the places that you are now. There's nothing to be ashamed of. We're all inadequate. But when Christ comes, He fills in the gaps and helps us in the areas in which we need help. We'll sing 5:35. Make me a servant. Make me a servant, humble and meek. Lord, let me lift up those who are weak, and may the prayer of my heart always be, make me a servant, make me a servant, make me a servant today. Make me a servant, humble and meek. Lord, let me lift up those who are weak, Lord Jesus. Because, Lord, there's not a person in this room today that is strong in your strength that wasn't weak at one time. And Lord, as far as that goes, there ain't a one of us, Lord Jesus, that have any strength whatsoever to accomplish your will on this side of eternity without your strength empowering us day by day by day. You give grace to the humble, Lord Jesus, but oppose the proud. You've called us, Lord Jesus, to be gentle, to be patient, to be meek and lowly to those who need it most. We just want to pray and ask, Lord Jesus, that you would use the people in this room and the ministry of this church in such a way as to do that, Lord Jesus, to just be a servant to those who are in need, Lord Jesus, to be able to use discernment also, Lord, for those who wish to take advantage. But Lord, we're thankful. We're thankful and we praise God that we can be taken advantage of, Lord, for your sake. Lord, we've all taken advantage of you, haven't we? So Lord, we're just so thankful for your gentleness, your patience toward us, your humility, Lord Jesus, that you chose the cross while yet we were still sinners. Help us to follow and step with your example. Help us, Lord Jesus, that if anybody would be turned off by the faith, it would be your doing, Lord Jesus, and not our own. And help us to always exalt Christ in the presence and in the midst of those who are skeptical of the faith. Help us, Lord Jesus, to warn people of the severity of God, but also to warn people of the goodness of God. And we thank you that you're using us this evening. Lord, as we dismiss from here, let's go in peace, knowing that you've been